class or a course in a program of studies, or we can just move forward. It's up to the pleasure of the board.
Well, following on the previous discussion, I think we will leave it up to our expert staff. to
Okay.
determine whether this is- And this is just.
Yeah.
my observation.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it too. Carol has been really doing a lot of the founding work with VDOE with developing this.
She has.
So it's been a great,
Yes.
partnership. I'm excited for the projects, so the students can own that data, the last project, and they can use their own data.
Right.
Very cool.
And I will say additionally, with the new math revisions, they are really incorporating a lot of data science in kindergarten through 12th grade. So students are not only going to be doing this in this course, but we'll be looking at graphs and analyzing things and asking them, what do they see? What do they notice? And talking a little bit differently about what that means to look at data, examining bias and gathering data and talking about your samples and who you're surveying and who you're getting that data from. So we're going to be doing that kindergarten through 12th grade, a little bit at a time. So they have, by the time some of them get to this course, they will have had a lot more experiences in data science than our students have right now. That's our hope. But thank you, I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or give me a call if you need any more information about the course, but I appreciate your support in this.
Dr. Walsh, you are a jewel.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
All that you bring to our system.
Thank you.
And have,
Thank you.
ever since you started out, it's been wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, I appreciate the board support. You have all been great to me and to the specialists and to everybody and to the teachers as well. And I know that they really appreciate the support too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
This morning, on the news, they were showing a new program that the football teams, the professional football teams are using. They have a device that goes behind the helmet, and they can track the speed with that of a running back, how fast he's going, what direction he's going, how his moves are, all kinds of data that they can gain from that. And the challenge, this is where this comes in so well, was to interpret that material so that it could be best used for the advanced, to help the football team.
Mhm.
It was a pretty cool thing. It really was. That guy was running 24 miles an hour this morning. Let's moving on.
Hard to tackle
I'm
him.
talking about 25.
So the problem is with that, the other team gets that same information. They know how fast he runs, what direction he runs, and how hard he hits.
That's right.
There you go. It's the great equalizer.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Bishop.
I'd say it's
go
right
again.
This is another part, planning for the future. This is an alternative route to licensure. So it's for our teachers who may be a paraprofessional, who do not have, who have a bachelor's, but need that teaching endorsement. So it's just that getting them over the hump so they do not have to take master's level work. So this is an alternative path where, and iTeach is the company basically that we would like to work with to provide this for our paraprofessionals or anyone with a bachelor's who wants to teach for us. The next slide is, I think I can do it this way too. So the legislative in 2019 said, hey, school boards, you can have an alternative path for licensure. Teachers don't need to have a degree in education or a bachelor's or a master's. So let's find a different way to do this. So what has happened is iTeach has come along, and they're working with several other school divisions in the Commonwealth. They've started in almost 20 years ago in Texas, and used their program. They give all the foundational work for teaching and learning. And it's competency based, it's distance learning, it's rigorous, it's aligned with the Council for Accreditation of Education Preparation has has accredited this. And this is also cost effective. It's about $3,000 to get your licensure. And they work on different levels. So we're preparing our state application. They would come to informational meetings, and then the teachers or the paraprofessionals would have that online curriculum. Another good thing about iTeach is they would help give the paraprofessionals, new teachers, helping them pass that praxis test, which is difficult for some of our teachers. Some teachers don't actually pass it. So that would give them the actual support. So we would provide this application to VDOE. VDOE would approve this application for Middlesex. Other school divisions are going about the same process that we are going with through iTeach. This is the only company that is accredited by CAPE that is aligned to the standards. They will be aligned to the Virginia standards as well. As a teacher does this, they have an application. They go through an enrollment process where they enrolled. They're vetted by us. They're vetted by iTeach, and they go through the training program. Typically, they would focus on the praxis first to get them certified, to get that provisional license. And then the teaching residency, we would have, it would be myself, it could be Dr. Walsh, Dr. Seitz, who would do the observation, who would kind of do that field placement and give them feedback, and the principal as well, to give them feedback for their teaching and learning. And then these are all the certification areas. So we chose a few that we thought were important for our critical shortage area. It doesn't mean that we can't choose more. And that is the different ones, elementary education to math to English. And then the benefits, it's really financially advantageous for our potential teachers. It's convenient, it's all online, it's all asynchronous, it's aligned to the 8 professional standards. And after they are completed with that work, so they don't pay for this program. They have the $250 initiation for registration, but the $3,000, they don't pay for that until after they have completed that. And so then that's something that we can look at too with our tuition assistance program as well, if we go in this direction. And it's really a benefit for us. So that's basically in a nutshell where we'd like to apply for that alternative pathway through the VDOE using iTeach. It's a program that's been vetted. 22,000 teachers have already gone through that program from Texas and Tennessee and different states as well. So that's basically where we are to help increase our teaching pool. All right, do you have any questions?
I have a comment.
Sure.
When I saw this, I went to the literature to see what the research shows. And the research that compares the student academic performance of teachers who have got their certification the traditional way versus those who have gotten their teaching certificate in this alternative method, either iTeach or Teach for America, Troops to Teachers, or some other alternative method. It turns out that they're about the same. The academic performance of the students who are being taught by these teachers is about the same as the ones from the traditional programs. So I think we can go with confidence that the quality of the teaching is not going to suffer just because you don't have a certificate from a brick and mortar school.
Right. And then we'll be stepping side by side with those teachers throughout this program, giving reports and helping them and supporting them through their, the practicum and their instruction within that classroom as well.
Thank you. Once again, our excellent leadership has brought us something new for them. That's cool. All right, let's see. Our budget priorities, Dr. Seitz. Now I'm going to start my ones. Okay.
I think, Mrs. Bagby also printed out a copy of the slides if it's a little bit difficult to look at. Look at what's up here. This really is though more of an overview of where we are and what we're looking at. It'll be some reminders of things that we pay attention to as we start to develop the budget. And then I'll let you know certainly at the end when we would expect to see something from the state level, or I guess more as a proposal. So getting us started, variables that affect the budget every year, first of which is student enrollment. And so for this year, for FY23, we based our budget on 1,100 students. We are currently at 1,160, which is exciting. And looking at the 23-24 school year, or FY24, we will likely, if our numbers stay consistent right now, we'll likely base that on an enrollment of 1,150. That keeps it a little bit conservative in case we do see any movement and come down a little bit. We'd rather be on the more conservative side of enrollment projections when we look at that. Standards of quality, this one is just a reminder that the state has its own methodology of what it determines are needed positions in a school division, and those are identified under the standards of quality. For Middlesex, that's about 56% of our positions that get technically funded at the state level. I'll have another factor into that as I move down through the bullets here. Insurance premiums, that's always something that we pay attention to quarterly when we meet with their broker on that. They will be increasing again this year. We are hoping that the most that they will increase is 8%. We're hoping it to be a little bit less than that once we get the final quarter of our experience. We're hoping that it goes down a little bit. We did see an increase this year. That was 11%, which we did absorb into the budget ourselves, but that certainly becomes a factor as we look into next year. The composite index, or LCI, this is just another reminder of really the responsibility that falls on our local government here. Our LCI is 0.6324. It'll be the same for next year because that's benchmarked every 2 years. And just as a reminder, that means that in this calculation, the state believes that Middlesex County has the ability to pay for just over 63% of its educational expenditures. And so again, most of the bulk of our budget falls on our locality here to support that. And so the governor will release his initial budget this week on Thursday. And so that's when they'll be able to Karen will be able to get her hands on the calc tool and start to plug in what we have now and what that looks like going into next year. Of course, the process then is the Senate has a budget, House has a budget, and hopefully they can come into agreement sooner this year than last year. It is a short session, and so we're hoping that by the end of February, we do have a final budget, which would be a whole lot earlier than we had it for FY23, so that we can have those things finalized at that time. So that's just an overview of the things that impact our budget every year. And so I did send out a survey this year. Unfortunately, we did not get a lot of respondents. 36 you'll see. Last year we had about 118. So less this year, and even in that, about 10 of those responses actually were not related to budget. They were just other things, I think, that either staff or families felt it were important to share. And so we've got some other good feedback that we can use in other departments, whether it's related to recess or paper report cards or cleaning and things like that. It was some data that we just had to throw out because it wasn't necessarily related to budget costs. And you can see how the responses broke out, whether it was employee, parent, community, that way. And so the suggestions that did come from the survey, even though they were not large in number, they were very large in actually recognizing what our needs are here. The biggest feedback we got was in the area of compensation and benefits, whether that's increasing salaries or keeping salaries competitive. Stipends for additional work that's outside of the of the regular school day, and then being asked to please keep in mind health insurance costs. Is there any way that we can have some savings there for our employees? Another one area that popped up a few times was expressing the need for an additional administrator at the elementary school. And so currently now we have one principal and we have one assistant principal. We have over 600 students there. And so of course, obviously, because it's the largest school, you would understand that there are more meetings that need to be held and such. Because of just the age of the children at the elementary school, this is where 99% of our referrals for child study meetings and moving into eligibility and things like that, and then overseeing IEP meetings and 504 meetings. You can certainly appreciate that that's where the largest number of those meetings are held. That can take almost one person really to be designated to cover that responsibility. So in addition to what our two administrators are doing now, it's covering all of those meetings. We are seeing an increase in need for student support related to behaviors. And so we do have one school counselor at MES, and we have a paraprofessional who's acting as like an assistant type position there. But we were seeing that it does take almost a whole nother administrator to help, whether it's diffuse situations, work with parents and such on those types of behaviors that we're seeing an increase in. And so then in addition to all that, we are required to be an instructional leader for 3-year-olds through 5th grade. And so whether we look at maybe another assistant principal or a dean of student, which we recognize is not an SOQ funded position. SOQ does not see the need, or the standards of quality do not see the needs, even in a school of 600, that would support an additional administrator. And so looking at this would be definitely a budget impact. In the most recent superintendent's advisory committee, this came up a few times from staff members also, for us please to consider that as we move into next year's budget. Another piece that popped up a couple of times was upgrade or repair to the playground at the elementary school. It has two. There's one at the end of the school that's considered a pre-KK playground, and then we have the other playground that the rest of the school is able to use. We had actually set aside some ESSER funds for that, and we're going back to revisit and making sure that our structures there are safe, and anything we need to add, we're able to do that. And then there was a few other things that popped up within the survey. Maybe a need for more copiers at the elementary school. Most kids, it's got most teachers also. We were asked to look at exploring additional courses and extracurricular activities specifically at the middle school. There were some recommendations for teacher training. A couple of the things were, since there's just one gifted coordinator, is making sure our general education teachers have training for students that need those additional resources too. And could we ensure that all of our staff has some training in social emotional learning for all of our students? And then you'll see there was some discussion, or actually a question in the budget survey about some additional support at the middle school for a program that's maybe an alternative classroom setting, not separate like Compass Academy is, but they're seeing some of those needs maybe for students at the middle school. We're seeing behavioral needs just across the board, and we're not the only school division that's seeing that. It's a topic in almost every meeting that Dr. Bishop and I attend regionally or at the state level. And then expanding the PAYS program. That was what Mrs. McMurtry spoke about earlier with the stocking and what the students in Mr. Laster's class do. And we were asked in the budget survey to consider expanding that outside of just one. Right now, it's one classroom of students that's able to participate. But certainly Mr. Laster has seen a need for recognizing that there are other students in our division that could benefit from that. And so those were the suggestions that we got from the survey. I, of course, asked the question, do you see any potential savings? And so without going through a budget and dissecting it, these were the things that popped out as potential savings. Had we looked at other health insurance options, and we have done that. And so far, we've not seen anything come back to us that is at a lesser rate than we're already paying. I have also been cautioned by other superintendents to, whenever we explore that opportunity, to just beware that initially another company can come back with a lower rate and they follow it the next year with a huge increase. And so we're certainly pay attention to that. There's a suggestion of going more on the technology side and not using as much paper. That's always a cost saving. Exploring grants, we do try to do that as much as we can that come across our desk and things that we look for, and have been able to take advantage of some grants that we've already had the opportunity to receive. Of course, all of the ESSER funds was grant money. You know, the thing to be cognizant of there is that grants run out, and you want to make sure that whatever we apply for grants for, it is a one-time funding source. But certainly we like to take advantage of those. There was a suggestion to bring custodial services in-house as a cost-saving measure. We actually explored that last year, and it would have cost us more money to take it in-house and provide all of those benefits and such for employees. There was a suggestion for us not to purchase electric buses. They actually are a savings on both parts, even the purchase piece, because of the grants we were able to receive. We actually paid less for the electric buses than we do for diesel buses. And then, of course, there's a savings on the fuel side of things. Examining utilization of textbooks and materials. It's not often that we do adopt textbooks here. We just went through that process, or you all just went through that process at the end of the summer when we adopted the EL curriculum for our middle school language arts. But certainly we do need to pay attention to not purchase things that we don't need or we're not going to use. And then lastly, a suggestion for a community donation list. And we do have great partners in our community and organizations that do support us. And so what are we looking at as we move into FY24? Again, this really is a larger, like a 30,000 foot view of things we will be working on. Of course, supporting and developing our staff is number one, because that's the most important piece and critical piece to teaching and learning. And so maintaining competitive salary structures, you saw it in the budget feedback, that will, last year we were able to provide a 7% salary increase for all of our staff. So going into FY24 at a minimum, that will need to be a 3% increase. I think it's important also, we will explore what other our regional divisions, what their salary scales look like and what that looks like going into FY24, because they are our competitors also. And we want to make sure that we are recruiting the best staff and that we are able to retain the best staff. And then addressing the cost of health insurance. As I mentioned, we are looking at an increase going into this year, or FY24, of hopefully less than 8%. So that either has to be built into our budget or that has to be passed on to our employees. And so both of which have impacts there. And then recruiting and actually retaining our staff and providing professional learning and support. Of course, number one and number two have the biggest impact also on recruiting and retaining our staff. And so we want to make sure that we are providing a competitive salary, and that even in addition to that, we offer health insurance that doesn't break the bank once they come on and sign on with us. We're working now with an outside company to create some more recruiting materials that our HR specialists will be able to take with her when she's recruiting, and those will be aligned to our new strategic plan, which we're also planning to roll out at the beginning of the year. And of course, we are assessing what our staff's needs are and what we can provide to them in-house and what we need to go out of house in order to provide, all of which comes at a cost also. And so, I mean, ultimately, we do all of these things so that we are providing the best programming. This does not hit everything that we offer. It's just a little bit of a splattering of a list of things that we do, or at the top of the list that we continue to try to work on our career and technical skills and identifying the right courses for our students, creating partnerships in the community for work-based learning. We have an excellent partnership, excuse me, with RCC and our dual enrollment opportunities. They are great to work with there, and they actually have been able to get some grants that have allowed for our teachers to get the requirements that they need for dual enrollment. And so they continue to evaluate where we are in our course offerings and what we still need to offer. We were able to bring take advantage of the JRTC program this year in partnership with King and Queen. That did come up after our budget was finalized, and the Board of Supervisors happily approved the additional funds for that, but that does get built into our budget for this year and future years. Literacy program, I mentioned that we'd adopted the EL curriculum at the middle school recently. The elementary school was already using that. And so as we continue to evaluate those programs, we continue to train teachers also, whether it's letters or being a reader and those things, all of which come at a cost to us, whether it's the training piece of it or just the materials and supplies that the teachers need in the classroom. And then I added mathematics coaching in that. We moved one of our teachers this year from a classroom teacher into a mathematics coaching position at the elementary school, and that is working very well in grades 3 through 5. We are using ESSER funds though to provide that position. And I believe that we all knew that once we started in that, we were going to see the successes of it and want that to continue in our budget. And so we need to think about whether that goes into the FY24 budget or the FY25 budget, because the ESSER funds will come to an end. So that's just a few examples of some of the programming that we either have in place and are continuing to really develop because they are in their early stages. And then lastly, our capital projects, the largest of which you're all very aware of, and that's renovation to the high school. We will soon have the final document that really details out what all of those costs look like. We've had some conversations with the Board of Supervisors just in a smaller setting. Some of those conversations have led to, can we do it in a phased program like that? And so I do look forward to getting the document that we'll be able to go through and see what is most feasible. Of course, I am still recommending that we pursue option 3, which is a renovation it is a renovation of the whole building. Part of the building just gets touched a lot more. And then there is like a reconstruction of the east wing. It's demolished and reconstructed to build in 8th grade there. So we will keep that at the forefront of capital projects. We still have 2 other areas that we had not addressed yet, and that is the roof restoration at the elementary school. That's about an $800,000 cost, but it still would be cheaper than replacing the entire roof, where they've done some studies and able to notice that there are some areas of the roof that have moisture beneath it. And due to the age of the building, it opened in 2002. It's better to start a restoration process than to avoid having to replace the entire roof. And so that is in our CIP project that we've sent to one of the projects that we've sent to the county. And then the LED lighting, which is we're asking for at both the elementary and the middle. We had that in last year's plan also. And that changes out all of the current fixtures and switches them to more economical and efficient LED fixtures. And so there's energy savings cost there also. And so again, I said this was just going to be an overview of what we will be looking at and working on. Once the governor's budget comes out and the calc tool comes out, we'll be able to start plugging those numbers in. And so that in the next couple of months, we'll be able to provide a more detailed budget for FY24. But I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you may have this evening.
All looks good. The insurance is always a troubling thing for us.
It is. We're expecting it or hoping, if we don't have, if our experience is better this quarter, because a quarter will drop off that had a higher experience there for employees, and so it should look a little bit better than 8%. But that really is dependent on how the quarter shakes out. But we should have that information in the next month. Is that right? Yeah. We'll have the specifics on that.
Thank you, Dr. All right, the floor is open for public comment. Public comment is closed. Dr. Sykes, you have any other goodies to tell us?
A few updates. Just wanted to let everyone know that our ESSER plan, Return to Learn, we're required to update that every 6 months. And we've updated it, but there actually weren't any updates. And so that is posted on our website with a link for comments to that. In addition, the ARP ESSER 3 spending plan, that there were some new directions from the state in that we were required to send that back out for some more feedback, update it with a newer form. That has to be posted on our website by December 31st. And so we've reached out to some community partners, gotten some feedback there already. We sent a survey out to staff and families. We've gotten some comments back on that, and that will be planned to have that updated actually before we break on Friday. That'll be on our website there to meet those requirements. And then lastly, I wanted to update you on the overflow parking lot at the elementary school. Their Bay Design reached out to me because due to DEQ regulation change, they needed to go back and they had to conduct a stormwater management design and analysis, which included a soil evaluation, testing in that area, because we needed to incorporate a level of stormwater retention system. And so Bay Design worked to get that done. And then I heard back from them last week that they were unable to perform the infiltration testing because the seasonal high water table was encountered at a shallow depth. And that was not the type of facility that could be used that they were working to design. So it was kind of back to the drawing board, actually, to redesign the stormwater management facility as a wet pond. And so the construction costs will be impacted. We don't know yet what the additional construction costs will be. We are using ESSER funds to be able to build that parking lot, and we do still have funds available that will be able to cover it. We're sure of that. And so the expected completion date is by the end of next summer, in the summer 2023. So they're actually on course to where from our last conversation, when they were looking at what they needed to design there, the little obstacle that they've run into right now is not going to hold up the timeline. If we continue to run into things like this, then it will. And they, of course, are trying to get it done when school's not in session, which puts the bulk of the work, once all the design work is done, the bulk of the work would be when school is out and then finished before we start for the next year. And so that's an update on that.
Thank you. You're welcome. Anybody have any questions about that project? I know I've been asked about it a couple of times from Board of Supervisors, so it's good that we have a summary now. Yeah. Is there any old business to come before the group? Any new business? I would wish all of you all the best of holidays and enjoyment with your family and friends. And if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
There's a second?
I second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I thought for a second there, you all didn't want to adjourn.
Anybody else can say what they want? I'm going.
Problem.